All right, we are getting started with our live stream on YouTube of what are we building today and how to build and finance your new construction, your ADU, whatever it is that your project, is. And this is not about professional investors. These are about what you, as an average Joe, can do to build out your property, make passive income, or sell off properties, whatever. Construction is the new alternative to fix and flip. It's just so much great return on investment. This week, we're tackling two cool things. One is we just yesterday had a meeting with SDG&E, which is the Southern California power company, and they are implementing some new portal changes and changes in general to help simplify the power permit process, particularly for ADUs. The second thing is we're going to talk about this hot new trend of no paying on your construction until it's built and you've got a rental. Is that a good idea or not? Well, let's look at the math. As always, math doesn't lie. So first, we're going to tackle the SDG&E presentation yesterday with the Building Industry Association of San Diego. Thank you, BIA, for organizing that. And thank you to Devin Way of Streamline Design and Ben Gagnon of Snap ADU for leading up a working group with SDG&E on how to streamline the power permit process. We can only hope that PG&E and the others take note of what SDG&E has done because they have simplified quite a bit. And their goal is to create as much self-service as possible, one point of contact, and ultimately 15-day permits. A couple of things stood out. PG&E, SDG&E has a portal which generally the contractor works on. And I can already see a bifurcation of contractors versus average Joes applying. And I suspect we're going to have a fast track line for trusted contractors to start submitting permits and so on. And they're also, so I think that could be beneficial rather than having homeowners do it, because generally speaking, no offense, but homeowners don't know what they want. Having said that, there's basically three critical things that the power companies need from you. They need to know the load and they need to know the address. They do not need designs approved. And so it makes sense that once you have the load, the electrical load and the address, and a rough design, like is this 750 square feet, attached, detached, basics, but you do not need the design, you can start submitting for the process. The second thing is the tariff schedules, i.e. the prices of everything with connections and so on with SDG&E are still fairly subjective. And yeah, I'm going to rat them out and give you the inside scoop because they shouldn't be doing this. But if you tell, they base their pricing on your intent. So that's why contractors can't tell you what the cost is going to be because the truth is they don't know. And when we tried to pin down SDG&E to say, well, why can't you tell us what the pricing is going to be? Their answer is they don't know because they start by what's your intent? By the way, if you say you're going to rent to family and maybe grandma and get all specific about it, the prices are lower than if you say you're going to rent to a stranger. Because what they're assuming is, oh, I'm generating income that can more than pay for this cost. So we're going to charge you more. Um, we are working on legislation that would require them, and HCD has already told me that they shouldn't be doing that. But this is why you would think a contractor ought to be able to go in and say, look, I have this design for a one bedroom. It has a mini dishwasher, mini fridge, whatever, and it's this set of appliances. And then I have a two bedroom with this set of appliances and thus this electric load, and a three bedroom. Can we pre-price out? The answer is still going to be no. So don't blame your contractors for not knowing what the heck the power companies are going to charge. The other aspect of that is, and I think the power companies have finally learned, they had been charging customers to upgrade the local transformers and substations and so on. And they can no longer do that, but occasionally they'll still try. Now, this is tough for them, and this is where I actually feel kind of bad. When you're building infill, you are basically installing a new house in an electrical grid that may already be overtaxed, and you as contractors don't know. So when SCG&E or the power company comes in, they've got to figure out, oh, whoa, the system's already overloaded, or no, it's just fine, or we got to upgrade this and that. They had been charging money on the homeowner to do that. They're not allowed to do that anymore, but they're still trying to figure that out. The other thing that was kind of interesting, and I may have mentioned this before, is if you want to ground your wires, and I'm pushing the SDG&E in particular to open this option up because most cities and municipalities want to put all the wires underground. It's safer, greater fire prevention, greater protection for the lines, et cetera. But a single homeowner cannot just, if you have poles up, you can't just ground your little driveway of wires. The whole block would have to do that. But SCG&E says if the whole block agrees they want to do it, you can do it. And the whole block gets their line grounded. So now there could be some cost involved, but it could also be minimal. I don't know the short answer, but that is something to think about because ultimately grounding your wires is not only safer, particularly with fire and electrical hazards, but it really adds aesthetically. There's nothing like a bunch of telephone poles. Why do we need that stuff anymore? So think of that strategically as part of your build. Also, I'm getting a lot of questions about promotions from contractors, particularly in the Los Angeles area, that say you don't have to pay anything on your ADU until it's built and rented. And people really like that because let's face it, most people are building ADUs because they need the extra income. They're already stretched. The last thing they need is a monthly payment. So, is that a good idea? Well, I talked to some of the builders that are offering that. And what's happening behind the scenes is that the builders are getting financing and they're passing that charge off onto you, often at rates of 12%, which is really, really high. So when it gets done, they're charging you an extra 25 to $50,000 on your cost to build, rather than having, which gives you the benefit of not having to pay as you go. Now, I would like to contrast that with the benefits of a home equity line of credit, for example. In this example that I'm going to share, we've worked out, and we can do this with any client, on a $350,000 budget, what do we think the monthly payment on a home equity line of credit would be, right? And I'll explain why this is important. If we know the benefits of a home equity line of credit are that you only pay on what you use. So if I give you a line of credit of $350,000 in this example, if you don't spend any money, you don't pay anything. Now, let's say month 2, you write a check in this example for $10,000 to pay for designs. You get at a 7% rate, you get a bill for $58.33. That's it. That's it. Now, on the next month, if you spend another $15,000, then you get a bill for $87.50. So as that monthly payment increases over time, as you're spending more and more money, your last bills can be pretty tough. In this case, at 330,000, the final monthly payment would be $1,900 before we refinance that to a fixed rate second mortgage and before the renter is in. So, but instead of having to pay, if you're tight on a budget, what many of my clients do is opt to pad their HELOC, their home equity line of credit, with those cash reserves. So in this example, we've calculated every expected monthly payment that I just described, and those total $8,779. So if we add that $8,779 to the HELOC, now you can use your HELOC money to actually pay your HELOC bill during construction. Sounds crazy, but it works. What happens is, when you get this first bill for $58.33, you write a check to yourself using your HELOC checkbook. Write yourself a check of $58.33. You deposit it into your checking account, and then you write a check to the HELOC company to pay that monthly bill of $58.33. That way, you're not out of your personal funds. You're using HELOC funds to pay just that HELOC bill. Now, obviously, you can't do that forever, but using that extra pad of 8,779, you can get the HELOC paid for much, much more cheaply than having your contractor pay for your financing. That's way cheaper than the $25,000 or $50,000 that they charge. And that's partly because their rate is running around 12%, whereas your rate might be at 7% or 6%. So don't be fooled by those offers to pay for your construction during construction until you get a renter. Run the math, make sure that your construction costs are adding up accurately, and then you can figure out what that extra padding of the cost of finance is, and you can make the mathematical decision based on true numbers. I hope that's helpful. I know that's a bit confusing. You can always schedule a time with me or my loan officers at calendly.com/ADU loans. You can also find that link on our website at aduloans.net, along with a ton of other resources on what's happening with new construction. Our bank is also rolling out commercial construction options this month. We're excited to tell you more of that, but have a great week and let's get building.